survivalists. This is John from the Zombie Prep Network, and today I'm going to talk to you about the skills to pay the bills. And what I'm talking about is the skills that you need after the zombie apocalypse for short and long-term survival. For short-term survival, what I'm talking about are tactical skills, okay? For longer-term survival, I'm assuming when the zombies come that the grid's going to go down, there's going to be social chaos, maybe for a prolonged period of time, maybe a number of years, who knows. So those skills we're going to call strategic skills. This is your long-term survival stuff, okay? So what are the skills that you need or that you should be studying and learning right now that will prepare you to thrive in the future? And there's a big list of skills that you could attain, and one of the ways to prevent yourself from having to know everything is by teaming up with people, right? So when you build a team, you can sort of divide skill sets. Okay, you go off and learn, medical care. You go off and learn this. You go off and learn that. That's a very good strategy. I broke these down in some general categories, and these are based on survival needs. So, food and water, shelter, fire, safety. One thing I didn't include here is medical first aid. There's a reason for that, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And it's not that you don't need medical and first aid skills. You absolutely should get those. Everybody should have those without question for long-term survival. But I'm going to talk about that a little more in a second. So, down the tactical column, these are the things like something happens immediately. You need, the zombies come, you immediately need to bug out or whatever. So, one of your primary needs is going to be food and water, okay? And that's actually not the first thing you're probably going to need, but food and water is a big one, okay? So on the tactical side, we're talking foraging and hunting, okay? And foraging depends on your environment, right? If you're in an urban environment, you have to know how to forage in an urban environment, which doesn't mean picking plants off trees. It means finding food in other ways. Long-term, strategically, we're talking about anything farming, basically. Farming skills, growing your own food, raising animals, that sort of thing. Also, processing meat is going to be a big deal. Foraging and hunting, yes, there are hunter-gatherer societies. Unless you're really, really good at this, it's going to be hard long-term. Unless you live in an area with a ton of game and you're very, very good at this, your long-term survival is going to be very difficult. The next is shelter and fire, and this actually should be the first thing that you concern yourself with in the short term. You can go for about 4 days without water and about 40 days without food, but if you're exposed to the elements, you can die in minutes or hours, okay? So shelter, fire building. Know how to build a shelter given your environment. Everything depends on the environment where you spend the most time, okay? So I live in the Northeast. I need to know how to build shelter actually using snow sometimes, using the plants we have around here. I have to know how to build fire when it's raining out. Same thing with, if you live in a desert, that's going to change your priorities, right? Exposure is going to be less hypothermia and more heat stroke issues. Long-term strategic skills for shelter and fire building, or the needs that are covered by shelter and fire building, basically construction skills, right? You might have to go into a building and make it habitable long-term. So anything construction or trade. So construction, even electrical, if the grid goes down, it might eventually come up, or you might figure out a way to rig a generator, but that's really only safe if you know what you're doing, okay? Lastly, we'll talk safety. So short-term tactical safety, safety and security are shooting, knifing, and empty hands. And I honestly think everybody should know how to do all three. Everybody on the planet should know how to shoot. I don't care if you never have owned a gun, never want to own a gun, you hate guns, you're morally opposed to them, whatever, you should still learn how. We live in a world where firearms exist, and there is no chance that they're ever not going to exist, in my opinion. So you should understand how they work and what they're used for. Knifing, edged weapons are very common. Everybody has knives in their kitchen. In places where guns have been removed from society, people kill each other with knives. And even they still use guns, but they're just less available. And empty hands are always going to be sort of a first and last resort to get to your weapon, or if your weapon's taken away from you, or your weapon malfunctions, or you're caught without your weapon for some reason. Bad juju, but you can take a zombie out with empty hands. We'll give you some lessons about that soon. Long term, what we're talking about here is weapons maintenance and weapons construction and training. So weapons maintenance, you have to know how, if you own a firearm or are going to use a firearm for survival, you better know how to maintain that. You better know how to clean it, take it apart, put it back together, do some minor repairs. If you go down the path of becoming a gunsmith, I would say that your skills are going to be as good as gold in a post-apocalyptic society. Weapons construction, okay? And this doesn't mean like smelting ore from the earth and building a gun out of it. No, what I mean is you should know how to grind a blade on a piece of steel that you pick up, or even use wood and stone implements to build primitive weapons, okay? Because this could save your life. So long-term building, understanding these things, and training, meaning you know how to impart the skills you have onto other people. Being able to do something and being able to teach something are not the same skill set. As a martial arts instructor, I can tell you that for sure. Learning how to teach other people is a long-term survival strategy, right? It's a strategic survival safety thing. Okay, if you gather with people and they don't know how to shoot, knife, or use their empty hands, or even any of these other skills, and you can teach it to them, you increase your chances of survival significantly. So my opinion is that you should constantly be training in something, more than one thing if you can. And these are some of the things that you might choose from, if you're really serious about surviving the zombies, because they are coming, and it is going to be awesome, but only if you live through it. This has been John with the Zombie Prep Network, and we will talk to you soon.